All right, we'll call this meeting to order. We'll have roll call.
Fish. Here. Hausman. Here. Jones. Here. Parsons. Here. Wakefield. Here. Mayor Beasley.
Here. Nope, it does not say. You're on the wrong agenda.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one.
All right, I will entertain a motion and a second to approve the agenda for this special meeting.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Parsons, second from Hausman for approval of the agenda. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We will now meet our Ward 2 candidates. I'm assuming they're in the order of the packet.
Yeah, the order in the packet is just the order they were received. Other than that, there's no special.
Okay. Ms. Clark?
Hello,
How are you doing?
Deanna Clark, 417 Switchgrass. I just wanted to take a minute before I talk about me, and I wanted to talk about all of you. I've sat out here for every council meeting for 6 months, and I feel like I know all of you. I know that that isn't mutual yet, but I've developed a lot of admiration and respect for all that you do, and that extends to administration and I guess Raleigh's not there. City workers as well. So from me to you, thank you for your community service.
Thank you.
A little about me. I think you all know my husband, Adam. At home, we have 2.5 dogs, and we've been in Brandon for 8 years. I'm most known by Clark Insurance, which is a insurance agency that's independent, and I grew it from the ground up 8 years ago. Clark Insurance currently employs 8 people here. Personally, Adam and I don't have any kids, but Clark Insurance is very much an extended family to us. And over there we have vicariously 13 kids, a lot of dogs, a couple cats, and a bearded dragon. And of the 13 kids, 12 are under the age of 12. So birthday parties are a lot of fun. My work history, my background is in accounting. I've spent the last 16 years in insurance, 8 of those years here in Brandon. I've become great at marketing, assessing and understanding risk, communicating, educating, researching, and problem solving. And these would be some of the traits that I would bring to City Council. Prior to insurance, I spent 15 years in the nonprofit sector. I did everything from advocacy to grant writing to assisting with benefits and finances, and I coordinated construction projects to be in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. With my work in nonprofits, I learned commitment, patience, humbleness, and compassion. I also learned to be appropriately conservative. These would also be traits that I would bring to the council. Prior to moving to Brandon, I was heavily engaged in community service work for 12 years. I truly believe that some people have community service in their blood, and I am definitely one of those people. I was heavily engaged in the Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity, state youth mentoring program, and then I voluntarily ran a local youth mentoring program for 8 years. I also held and put on a large fundraiser every year, and the last several years of that, I donated the proceeds back to the city for their bike trail system. Community service work taught me teamwork, integrity, passion, and accountability. These traits would also follow me to council. I think some of the strongest traits that I would have to offer council would really be traits that I've developed while I've been here in Brandon the last 8 years as a business owner. I've truly learned to listen, collaborate, compromise, set and reach goals, stay focused on the big picture, and always be solutions focused. Now, a question may come up, why didn't I do community service work when I moved to Brandon? Pretty simple. Starting a business takes every ounce of your being and every waking moment you have. And that's the kind of person I am. When I'm committed, 200%, I'm committed. Now, just because I took a break from community service does not mean that I didn't do good things for Brandon. I brought a thriving, successful multi-million-dollar agency to the community, and that brings people and it brings revenue to our community. It also brings jobs and a needed service to Brandon as well. And with that thriving business, I am very lucky to be able to give generously and frequently to groups, causes, charities, organizations, and events. Now, it might not be the traditional giving back of time to the community, but it still has been significant. Now, my business no longer needs 200 hours a week from me, thankfully, and I owe a lot of my business success to this community, and now I do want to give back with that time. My passion for community service work has been put on the back burner while I've been growing my agency, but that passion has never left. After sitting here for the last 6 months, that little spark that's been sitting on the back burner has now become a very large flame, and it's saying, "Put me in, coach." So that's my why to want to serve on the council. I'm very passionate about giving back, and I would not be asking for this opportunity if I was not completely convinced that I also had something to offer. I don't have a personal agenda to be here. My intent is completely genuine. Now, I'm one of those people that always does my homework, so I did reach out to a lot of people that I admire and respect to get their feedback, and it was overwhelmingly positive. And I'll save time, I brought them, but I'm not going to read through them all. But in addition to that feedback, I'm also reminded that this is Don Wells' seat, and he also recommended me. I'm very humbled that he would do so, and I see it as one of the many signs that I'm meant to be here. Ironically, Adam and I ran into Don last night out in the community. He was helping somebody move a big gun safe, and Adam jumped in and helped as well. And he informed me that I was the only candidate that has reached out to him since his resignation. I see that as also a sign of my commitment to this position. A few final thoughts of why I think I'd be a good fit. I am a local business owner and a local employer. I have thousands of customers, and I really do have a pulse on what's going on in the community. I can be a voice, a liaison, and a strong resource, and perhaps to some that aren't in the normal circles. I am active on local social media, very, very positively, and I know I could help form a bridge with the city to promote more awareness on topics and to market the city in general. Now, I don't get any negative backlash when I'm on social media. I think a lot of it is because I post positively, but I also think it's because I'm a local business owner and a local employer, and they may be a customer of mine or maybe a friend of somebody that works for me. I do think that there is more that we can do there because what I'm seeing is definitely positive. I'm somebody that has a lot of energy, and I believe that the little things add up. I don't know if anybody knows the story about the little boy that throws starfish back into the ocean.
Starfish store.
Yeah. That's a story that's very near and dear to me because I do believe that little things matter. And that's why I'm so active right now on the conservation topic. You know, hindsight's 20/20, and I feel like if the community wants to avoid that full water ban again, now is the time that we need to unite together and avoid that. So if my social media effort helps just a little bit, that's a win. If collaborating with the newspaper to be on the front page every week helps a little bit, it's a win. If involving the Conservation Committee a little bit more helps, it's a win. I think we can always do more, and I don't have a problem doing that work. After meeting with the current council individually as well as Mayor Beasley and Don Wells, I know I can sincerely say that I would work well with each one of you. And while the council is not always going to have the same viewpoints or opinions, which is good, you guys are a team, and there needs to be some unity. That would not be an issue with me at all. I will be respectful. I will do my homework. I won't have an ego or an agenda, and I would provide value. I would be hardworking, ethical, and committed. I'm the kind of person that does what she says and shows up for the cause, just as I have shown up here for the last 6 months. It's not because the sewer has been on every agenda, it clearly hasn't. I've shown up because I'm drawn to the bigger picture, and I want to help. I would be honored and humbled to be selected for Ward 2. Questions?
Questions for Mrs. Clark?
I had some canned questions that I was going to ask you, but you actually answered all of them in your statements.
Okay.
I had questions written down, and I guess I have one. Curious about your views on the ask that we've been asked to consider a subsidy of the ambulance service.
I don't know much because you went into executive council. Really, my viewpoint is simply what I know, which is when Jay stood here for the couple of minutes, so I can't really say I have a viewpoint.
I guess I'm just your view on supporting, not supporting the subsidy, just in general?
I would really need more information. I wasn't involved in any of the past MedStar information, but I'm somebody that will research and do my homework.
I have a question. For the social media stuff, and thank you for being positive, because that's what we need. We need positive people out there, so I know you are. Now, I don't remember if you told me or somebody else told me that you're now a moderator with the Ask and Tell.
I was asked to help administer. It is not my page, but I do have the authority to go in and take off something that's really bad or profane, things like that.
Do you see a conflict of interest, though, being on there and being on council?
Well, I think I could make positive strides if it got to a point where that wasn't happening. I would have no problem not having anything to do with it. At this point, all I'm doing is assisting.
Okay, that's all I got.
Any others?
Answered a lot of the questions that I had. So one of the things that's always important to me is any potential conflicts of interest. And in this case, obviously, with the sewer, you've been a very engaged proponent of fixing the issue in Clark Insurance with the backups and so forth. How would you take a stance if you were to sit on council? Would you try to push it forward, or would you?
I would abstain completely. Yep.
One other question, just your views, Dana, on just our local development efforts, specifically with the Chamber Development Foundation and the city support of those two organizations.
I think there's good strides. I'm really excited to hear more joint efforts, and strategic development is something I've talked to a couple of you about when we had our one-on-ones, and I think that that's very needed. I think anytime we can involve collaboration, I mean, more heads are better than one. I mean, we need to involve, I'd like to see more businesses involved. I'd like to see more things that bring the public in. All about collaborating.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any others? All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Buck?
I'd say ditto to everything Dana said in her opening comments.
That's not right. That's not
We'll shorten
fair.
things up a little. I am Harry Buck. I live at 400 3rd Avenue and here in Brandon. And my wife Barb is here. And so I guess what I would say is I appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you. And I would look forward to the opportunity to serve again on the city council. Excuse me, I'm not asking to serve because I think there's something that's broken. I really don't. I think that you guys are doing a terrific job. It seems like, and you guys will find this out too, once you've been on the city council, when you're around town and you're talking to people, it's just kind of second nature to support the things that happen here because you know kind of what goes into it and that sort of thing. And that's kind of the role that I guess I've played for the last 10 or 12 years since I was on the city council. I'm in the real estate business here in Brandon. Have been for about 12 years. Prior to that, I was in the seed and crop protection business in Minnesota and North and South Dakota, and for Monsanto. I retired from them and decided to get into the real estate business about 12 years ago. I think that there are some big decisions coming. There always is, but I think some of them that are coming, I think are in the next 8 months are going to take a lot of thought and a lot of questioning and thought-provoking conversations. I guess I would say that my priorities probably would be to find sensible solutions for the water situation, for streets. We've got a lot of work to do there. And then I think the aging sewer lines, in my opinion, and that's pretty much not a very educated opinion, but just as being a person around town, I can kind of see that. And these are expensive things. I mean, it just takes a lot of money. I'm always amazed when I think about, at Brandon, we operate a 4,500 student school system with about $45 million, and we operate a $10,000 or 10,000 person community with about $5.5 million, and there's just never enough money. And so I understand that. I would consider myself to be a pretty conservative when it comes to spending other people's money, much less conservative when it comes to spending my own, and pretty liberal, as a matter of fact, when it comes to spending my own. I believe in strong public safety advocate. I guess if I had a couple things that I could, on my wish list from a public safety standpoint, would be another exit out of Aspen Park. I think that's something that's been due for a long time in case of a bad storm or something. We got a terrific facility, and it's just wonderful down there. And but man, when you're down there on a busy night, if everybody had to try and get out at one time, it would sure be nice. And I think all of you guys probably know that. But once again, it takes money. And then quality of life issues would kind of be third on my list, I guess. You know, the youth recreation stuff, I'm obviously pretty solid on that. It's been amazing over the years here in Brandon how we've gotten so much community support. You know, back when I was on the council, the soccer group came in, and I don't remember, Larry, how much money they raised, but they raised a couple $100,000, I think, at least, and then the city kicked in some, and now at that time we were sending 300 kids a week to Sioux Falls to play soccer, and we got that done. And then the tennis association came in, and I think they raised like $400,000 or something, and the city kicked in the balance, and now we have a fantastic facility up there for tennis. And so I think that the working together with these groups is a terrific thing. Working together with the school, I think, is very important. As far as, you know, what I've done in the past, I think, you know, I know all of you, except I don't know Tim very well. And but I guess I would say that, you know, if being active in the community makes you qualified, then I'd probably be qualified. I've served, I think, as actually president of the council at one time. I was president of the Brandon Boosters Club. At one time, I was president of the Brandon Chamber. At one time, I was president of the Community Foundation, Barb, back when you were on it. And so, you know, I feel that I'm just a Brandon guy, I guess. And I don't know that I would want to do this past the next 8 months. But I feel there's a lot of things coming up in the next 8 months, and I'd be happy to serve and to hopefully help guide positive solutions for the future. Questions?
Same question regarding ambulance.
That's a real good question. I was on the council when we awarded the ambulance license to MedStar. My quick answer is I'm not in favor of subsidizing private business. That being said, I sure as heck don't want to lose that ambulance service either. And so, you know, back when I was on the council and we awarded the license, to me it was a no-brainer. I mean, we could get a paramedic at your door in about 15 or 20 minutes quicker than we could with the ambulance service we had. And, you know, I'm not a medical expert, but I think if you're having a heart attack and you're laying on the floor, an extra 10 or 15 minutes is really important. And so we wanted to get that paramedic there quicker. Now, if they're losing money, I would hope that we could maybe help them figure out some ways. And I don't know if there's a law that says they can't charge if they don't transport. To me, and I don't know if that's a legal issue, but as I understand it, if they don't transport somebody, then there's no charge to that person. You know, to me, you know, if you call a plumber, there's a service charge. it seems to me that they ought to have a way to raise some funds by being able to charge. Now, I don't know if it's legal. I really don't know that. So I guess my answer would be, overall, I'm not in favor of subsidizing private business. However, I would hope that we could figure out a way to be proactive and help them be successful so that we can maintain. And my guess is we may have the best ambulance service in the country. You know, I mean, I think the last time I looked, I think we get a paramedic there in about 5 minutes. And I wouldn't know who could beat that. You know, we got a great community here, and our public safety is terrific. You know, our crime rates, you know, all this positive information that we get is just, I just love that. And so, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Same question I had regarding, views on our local development efforts.
Well, I'm a big supporter of it. I'm a member of the Development Foundation. It's just been terrific, in my opinion. You know, we've brought a lot of jobs. Right now, we need to bring a lot of workers. I noticed in the political campaigns that, the last month on TV, so many of the politicians are talking about creating more jobs. In my opinion, we don't need more jobs. In my opinion, we need more workers. And so, yeah, I'm very positive about the foundation. I think the Development Foundation, it's a good thing. I'm hoping that we can figure out ways to help our employers out there find the number of workers that they need, because I think everybody's short right now. Other questions?
So here you've done a lot of community things, like putting time in, but I also think that you put some money into the community. Are you still doing that streaming of the football games?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily doing it. I'm just kind of the person that started it.
Okay.
Joe can tell you that I'm pretty good about getting things started and letting somebody else do
Yeah,
it.
let's everybody else.
I guess I do it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we started up a thing called Lynx TV. By we, I mean myself and Mr. Marceau, pretty much. I talked to Mr. Marceau one time when I turned it on and there was no voice. And boy, it's hard to follow something, if you don't have any announcers. And so I talked to him about, what does it take to get some announcers on there? And he said, well, just take some money. And I said, well, don't worry about it. We'll raise the money. I mean, it wasn't that hard for me. I called 7 people and got 6 people to say yes. And it's like, I don't know, $500-600 a year is all it costs for the sponsors. Now it's actually grown up. I think we have about 9 sponsors now. And a couple of the sponsors are the Community Foundation chipped in $1,000 last year. And so they're a sponsor.
So you're paying the announcers?
Yeah, that's what we had to do, is pay the announcers.
Okay. So we have voice now.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been that way for 2 years.
It's interesting too, on one football game last year, just on the internet, not on Alliance, but just on the internet site, there were 1,100 people watching. I thought that was pretty terrific. We were playing at Rapid City School or something. So my thought there was that, for grandparents and aunts and uncles that can't come to the games, it's really nice. And I have a couple nieces that played volleyball in Illinois, and I tried to watch theirs, and of course they didn't have any announcers either, so it's kind of hard to follow them. And so that's where the idea came from. So.
Kind of the same question I asked Dana, but about social media. How active are you on Brandon Ask and Tell?
I'm not very active. I actually do look at it though. I have posted a few things. And I was a little bit disappointed on the couple times that I posted some positive things that there were still people that want to be negative. And the internet is an interesting thing. It's very hard to manage the unmanageable. And the internet is pretty much almost unmanageable. I mean, it's very important. It's very important for my business. But it's just hard to manage it. And there are just so many people out there that seem like they just want to be negative. And so I think feeding positive information is the best way to go. But believe me, somebody will be negative about something.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I put on. I put on, the last thing I put on was about Alliance. You know, I got a refund check from Alliance. And my thought process was, you know, I can't remember the last time I got one from Verizon.
Oh.
And so I just posted something on there, and then somebody was negative about, well, I wish they wouldn't give out money, I wish it'd speed up their internet, and, you know. But anyway,
There's always something.
There's always something.
Okay, thank you, that's all I had.
Thanks, Dave.
Harry, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for all your dedication to the city of Brandon, because you have been dedicated for a lot of years. This has been difficult for me, because I have some tough questions to ask.
okay, good.
You know, I'm gonna go back to 11 years ago when I ran for city council.
Okay,
And there's a couple, I don't want you to take these questions personally, but I think that they have to be asked.
Okay.
You and I had a mutual friend, which I'm sure he still is a friend, no longer here, now in Colorado, by the name of Greg Burrell. Do you remember Greg and Cindy Burrell?
barely.
Okay.
I remember the name. I might have seen him. Did I see him around town? Is he back around town or something?
They come back and visit quite often.
Okay, yeah, wouldn't call him a friend, but I know the
Okay.
name.
Well, you had, back in the time, there was an opening on the council, and you had met with Greg and had asked his interest in running for the position in city council. It was in Ward 2.
Okay.
They lived up in Tallgrass Village. And I had some genuine concerns about that conversation, because I got a phone call from Greg shortly after that conversation, and he was asking me questions about the city, and he said, well, my biggest concern is, you know, Harry asked me a question. That question was this: Greg, are you interested in running? And if you are, you need to let me know, because we'll get you in. They don't call us the Brandon Mafia for nothing. And that was a phrase that was coined back in those days. And I just want you to speak on that.
I have no recollection of it.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of
I don't remember
that
talking to
term being
Greg.
used quite loosely in Brandon?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And my next question is, and you've kind of answered this, so I think I already know the answer, but public safety is a big concern, probably the priority for a city like Brandon. Mm-hmm. And I'm extremely proud of what we've had in the past and what we have today as far as a police department. But back when you were on the council, there was a push to abolish the Brandon Police Department and bring in the sheriff's office. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. So where do you stand on that today?
First of all, there never was a push. There was and you correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but what we did at that time, we were changing administration for the police. Mm-hmm. And we were involved in interviewing candidates, and somebody made a suggestion that maybe we ought to look into the feasibility of having the county cover us. So this would have been 8 or 10 years ago. And so that's what we did. We looked into the feasibility of it. We did not say that we were ever going to do it, but to me, if there's an opportunity to save $200,000 or $300,000 and have equal to, I mean, that's why we put bids out, then you ought to look into it. And I'm not sorry that we did look into it. We didn't do it, but we certainly were open-minded enough to say, if there's a better way, we owe it to ourselves and to the community to at least check it out. And so that's what we were in the process of doing.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And my last question was on MedStar, and you've already answered that, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then, same question that I asked Dana with a little difference, I guess, but any potential conflicts of interest with current or past history that would impact this position?
If there is a conflict of interest, it's just simple. You just recuse yourself. And an example would be, back when I was on council, occasionally somebody would come before council with an issue and they were a client and it had to do with the transaction or something. and I just recused myself. And when you recuse yourself, you not only don't vote, you don't talk about it. You stay completely out of it.
How long were you on?
Just 4 years. Yep. But it was a good 4 years. We got quite a bit accomplished. You know, we did the reconstruction of Holly, and we cut all that paramedic time down, and just a lot of good things. Had a lot of nice building stuff with the tennis courts and the soccer complex and that sort of thing, so I enjoyed it. And I want to thank you guys again for having us here and for listening and for doing a good job. So,
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Neested.
Well, good evening. I'm Sean Neested, 721 Magnolia. And since we're here to talk about ourselves tonight, we can clear the calendar for the 6 o'clock meeting. I'll only need the next 3 or 4 hours of your attention, so I thank you for that. Let's start with myself, since most of you are probably not familiar with who the heck is this guy. I grew up in Hartford, raised by a single mom in a low-income family. We lived in low-income housing. The values of that upbringing stay with me today. I'm very financially conservative in just about every sense of the word, although I would also be a little more loose with Harry's money if that were up to me. No, I'm kidding. I've known Harry for most of my adult life, and full disclosure, he's my realtor. So growing up in Hartford, I moved here to Brandon in 2001, and then was off for college for 4 years. And came back here immediately after graduating and started my professional career. My first professional job was at Kello TV in Sioux Falls. I was a reporter and anchor there for 10 years. Since leaving there 4.5 years ago, I work at Sanford Health in media relations and public relations and marketing. My degree is in speech communications with an emphasis in radio and TV. So I use my degree. Hooray. The overall background for me in those careers has been communications. Everything that I've done is about communications. And one of the most important things that you do in your job as a reporter is you're not an expert in everything, but at any moment you have to be an expert on something, and you never know what that thing is. So the importance from my professional life has always been research, find a solution if there's a problem, and articulate it as best as possible. Those are my strongest skills in communication. About myself now, we live here in Brandon. We've lived at our same home for 10 years. My wife is a school teacher. She teaches in Laverne. She teaches high school math, so she gets to balance our checkbooks. Our son Hayden is 7. He is all boy, and in fact, at this moment they're not here because they're at Taekwondo. So he's a very, very active young lad. Keeps me busy, keeps us all busy. My mom still lives here in Brandon. My in-laws live here in Brandon. My brother and sister-in-law live here in Brandon. My other sister-in-law lives here in Brandon. So to say I'm invested in the success of this community would be an understatement. I'm a planner by nature. I like to plan things. I like to have information. I like to look ahead. One of my biggest concerns of this city is really echoing what Harry said up here, is infrastructure. From the year 2000 to the year 2020, which 2000 seems like yesterday, 2020 is scary, it's 2 years from now, the population of this city is going to double. We need to be looking at that, but not just that, because there are no signs of this town slowing down. We're going to continue to grow. So we need to be looking at what does this town need, not for 2018, 19, 20. What does this community need for its success in 2030, 2040, and beyond? That's my planner side. Other things that I consider priorities for this community, economic development. We've done a fantastic job with the Corson Industrial Park north of town. I think you've seen a lot of progress out there. I think it has huge potential to continue to grow. I would like to see this community continue to try to attract more business, more job opportunities, more sales tax revenue. That's an important part here. Nothing makes me happier, because I drive to Sanford every day. I'm driving into Sioux Falls with that big line of traffic. Nothing makes me happier than to see people coming into town for work. I love that, and I hope we can continue to build on that in years to come. I love our park system here in town. We hear over and over again from the HR staff at Sanford what's one of the most important things you can do to attract people to move here and start their professional lives or continue their professional lives. And it's quality of life. It's quality of life issues like the park system. And that's how large employers here in Brandon, Sioux Falls, and our surrounding communities continue to bring world-class level folks to work in our areas. I would love to continue to see us continue that development of parks and maintain that high quality of life standard that we have here in Brandon. Also, code enforcement in this town. We have a beautiful community. This town is stunning, and I don't want to see it slip away. I can tell you personally, I have a neighboring property that the folks next door probably get very tired of me calling because there was no shoveling this winter. There was 19-inch grass already this spring. I would hope that as a community, we take a little more pride in that. And one of my efforts would be to make sure this community is a neighborly community. Make sure we're all good neighbors. We're taking care of each other. Because in the bottom line is that helps our whole town. We don't need property values to sink anywhere in this town because there are a few properties that fall into shambles. That's important for the entire town. So to conclude, that's a little bit about myself. I don't want to bore you for the 3 hours here, but I certainly could. I think you guys have done a great job setting up this town for continued success. And I think one of the best things here that you can walk out tonight is you'd have 3 really good candidates to fill this spot. Or maybe you've got 2 and a joker, however you want to look at it. But I think we're all in good hands, no matter who you choose to fill this empty seat and with all of your expertise. I take questions.
Sean, you have been around for a long time, and we certainly know you through your in-laws, but my question to you, with your career, do you understand the time commitment that it takes?
Yes.
To actually sit up here and do the research on the topics, and so the phone calls at night and weekends and visiting with people. I just want, I find it truly important for people to understand that there truly is a genuine time commitment to doing this job and doing this job well.
Yes, and actually this may sound conceited, this may sound wrong. I am the least busy I have been in my adult life. As some of you may know, my in-laws owned Huset's Speedway prior to its sale. So when you're operating a small family business like that, it's all hands on deck at all times, which meant probably 5 to 7 days a week out there. Sometimes it felt like 12 days a week out at the facility, making sure it kept going. With that no longer in the family, I've done more fishing and twiddling my thumbs in the last 2 years than I would like to admit. So I definitely have the time available for this commitment.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Question, I have the same one regarding the ambulance service.
I think we can say without a doubt, MedStar has saved lives in this town, without a shadow of a doubt. To see their response time is impressive. I would think many other communities are very jealous of the service we have here in town. I would support a reasonable subsidy for an ambulance service in this community, only because we know that our neighboring towns, with help from Minnehaha County, also receive a subsidy because it's a tough business, especially in smaller communities. I would hate to see our 3, 4, 5 minute response time revert back to a 20-minute waiting game. Seconds matter in emergency situations, and I couldn't imagine not having police in town. I couldn't imagine not having fire in town, so I couldn't imagine having an ambulance service in town.
All right, I have the same question for you. Thought I had the other 2. How are you on social media, and especially this Brandon Askin town?
I am what the kids would call these days a lurker on Brandon Askin Tell. I am on there. I have never posted on there. I have rolled my eyes many times on there. One of my jobs with the racetrack was managing social media. And Harry put it really well when he said you can't manage the unmanageable. It seems like a lot of times people use social media as an outlet to vent their frustrations. You can't change that, and you're not going to change that. But as a community, I think we could do a better job in our own social media arenas. The city of Brandon, for example, the Facebook page there. I think we could work harder on that. Facebook's difficult. There are a lot of hard to understand algorithms that they're always changing. You have to always remember that just because you post something on Facebook doesn't mean that your followers or your people are seeing it, although they are shifting some of their algorithms to help promote more local news. So those are some of the things that we as a community could take advantage of in an environment that's more controlled than an outside run forum type section of Facebook like Ask and Tell.
Okay, that's what I needed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Sean, you have a little guy.
I do.
So what do you think Brandon needs to do to encourage those young people to come back to our community once they go away to school?
Good question. Fortunately, I hope I'm a ways off from that. Hopefully it doesn't go rocketing all the way from second grade next year to graduation. I think we're poised in a very good spot for that, being close to Sioux Falls. That said, I still continue to believe we need to try to attract more business here to town. We've got a good number of small businesses. I would love to see, and it's difficult to do, but we're poised. We're sitting right on I-90. We're in a great location right across the border from Minnesota to try to bring in some more larger retailers. Now, given today's environment with online sales really taking a hurt in that arena, that's going to be tough. But I think we could all sit back and imagine what would Brandon be like if Cabela's was located here and not Mitchell. So that ship has sailed. I don't think you're going to get anything like that, but I would love to see more economic development like that here in town. The other part to that answer, I think, is the continued quality of life here in town. Again, this is a beautiful town. Growing up in Hartford, we have a park there, but nothing like what this community offers. From the soccer fields to all the baseball fields at Aspen Park. There's the RC club that's got their facility down there. That thing gets talked about all over the Midwest. When I go to Rochester to race RC cars, people know all about Brandon, South Dakota, and how cool it is that they have a facility on public grounds and that their city was working with them to do something like that for them and for the children of the community. So I guess that's kind of my long way of saying two things, in economic development and continue the high quality of life that we enjoy here.
And then, to be consistent, any conflicts of interest or anything? Oh, sorry. Still remembering to hit the buttons. Thanks, Wayne. Any potential conflicts of interest or, with being part of HUSITS in the past, anything that you can think of? Or?
None that I could see, but I think the consistent answer to that question is the obvious one, and that would be just remove yourself from voting and from the discussion of that issue. Thank you all.
Sean. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
A motion from Hausman, second by Wakefield for adjournment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
We'll get more people in here. Yeah, but we're gonna get more people, so then I'll be. I know. But my allergies.